Hello everyone and welcome back to Melbourne Talks NRL SuperCoach here for the round 6 trade targets and preview stream. Great to see already so many of you in the chat, which is awesome. Peanut Gallery says he's very keen. Luke's got a question, Munster or Hughes. I'm sure Melbourne Storm players will be a massive talking point going into this week. Adam Quinn looking forward to telling me to trade Ponga to Pappy tonight. I'm not sure if I'll be telling you to sell Ponga, but anyway, thanks for being in the chat here, Adam. Jason Yang, Uriah, Jakes, Nathan Pup, my main man, Amar, let's go. Luke says, let's go. Yeah, great to see this. A lot of excitement already. People buzzing. Again, another big week, I think, coming into this round. Early weeks of the season always feel like just very important weeks as we're trying to just get our team set up. Getting to that tricky time as well where you're trying to decide when do you start cashing in on maybe your cash cows from the beginning of the season, when do you start prioritizing guns and points versus maybe the cash generation. That's the question I've got at the moment for this week, which I'm not 100% sure about. So we'll get into all of that for sure in the stream, but thanks everyone for joining. No point wasting any more time, so let's get straight into everything. But yeah, obviously do drop your questions in throughout the stream. Ideally, we'll try to get through questions throughout the stream by covering all the hot topics. But any big questions that you've got pressing, keep them for the end of the stream as we talk through my team. And then at the end, I normally reserve hopefully about 5 minutes to answer your questions. But yeah, let's get cracking. So Aman's wife, firstly, I have to answer this because it's the most important person. Aman's wife says, dinner's ready downstairs, Aman. Again, not true. I've already eaten dinner, mate. What are you? You're slow in the uptake, unless you're just with someone else. I don't know what's going on. But no, thank you for being in the chat, Aman's wife. Good to see you. Hey man, the hair is looking beautiful today. Oh guys, you're too kind. I think I really, if anyone knows a good men's hair brand, just let me know, because I think I might have to reach out to them for a sponsorship, because I can't just be having all this complimentary behavior about my hair and do nothing about it, right? Man's got to eat, so I think I'll look to get some good sponsorship related to hair products. But no, I can tell you my main tips for hair is minimize how much you shampoo and condition it, because it just destroys your hair follicles. Just let the natural oils, don't obviously let your hair get crazy oily, but natural oils generally will keep your hair in better nick than just using shampoo and conditioner all the time. So there's my hot tip. What was for dinner? What did I have for dinner? Just had some pasta. Pretty boring. Anyway, long time listener from Martin, first time poster. Your team looks awesome this year. You're the man. Thank you very much, Martin. And yeah, look, I've got the rank on screen. Just the first thing to cover off. Yeah, look, I had I guess you have to say an outstanding week last week. I don't think I've ever had this good a week in SuperCoach in the many years that I've been playing it. Having a round rank of 358 was pretty insane. Just everything just worked. Like captaincy went right, reserve selection was right. Any players, like just all my players, no one really did that bad. Like my lowest score was actually Shibasaki in the end, 33, and he dropped out for my flex, which was Pappenhausen. But I had like a lot of people go in the 90s, like Cleary, Munster, Matty Nicholson. They all went into the 90s. Then, of course, Captain Gutherson, Iongi. So, just, yeah, it was a very good week. So, yeah, really stoked with that. And, yeah, with the season rank of 562 at the moment, which is obviously extremely high. I'm just a bit concerned that it's too early to be having a rank this good. I'd rather finish here rather than be here in round 5, because it just means that there's only generally one way you can go from here, which is downhill. But, look, it's a nice place to be for sure. So, yeah, no, and actually, I've had a lot of nice messages this week about the week I had and also my rank. So, no, I appreciate a lot to everyone who's reached out saying, yeah, that they're keen to see what my team's looking like and stuff. But, yeah, no, it's been good. And also shout out to Riley, who's he's currently leading the league, Grape Apes. He's sitting in 8th rank overall, which is, yeah, amazing as well. And he scored 1363 last week. So good work, Riley, topping the league and with the top 10 rank as well. It is all down here from here. That is exactly right, mate. That is exactly right. Real Keefe says, damn good week, bro. Yeah, it was super good. Yeah, so of course we'll talk about my team and potential trades later on in the stream. So I've got a slide on buy schedule for Origin. I'll pause that for now. I think looking at the poll, which I've got running at the moment, the main topic of discussion is on the cheapies this week. Basically, it's Thomas Cant and Dylan Egan. I think the two most popular cheapies of the week. I believe Thomas Cant is the most traded in player at the moment. Dylan Egan is number 3. So let's get on to that before we get into some other topics. TLT, to be honest, not a huge amount of big news, I guess. Actually, I'll quickly rattle this off before getting into the Dylan Egan and Thomas Cant chat, because the team list obviously feeds into this. So a few things to note. So Dylan Edwards back for Penrith is obviously going to be really big for them and just their overall prospects. I think that's going to help them a lot. Gilbert is back from his suspension, but on the edge, Dragons 1-17. So people are looking at Dylan Egan. He's retained his usual bench role. For the Titans, Fermor's back to the back row. Tino's out for a week with a suspension, and Fafita to the bench. Adam Reynolds' name for the Broncos, probably the big one, because I know people are looking at, with him being out, Reece Walsh goal kicking. That's probably changed things a little bit. Big news from the Roosters was that Chad Townsend got dropped for Hugo Savala, who is second or forward halfback eligible, and he's like bottom dollar. Hasn't happened in the final teams, but there's a lot of chat going around that Dom Young will get eventually dropped for Marky Mark to take his place on the wing, so just pending what happens there. The Troll named at 5'8" for the Rabbitohs, so it's a bit of a reshuffle for them. Cotter back for the Cowboys, otherwise not much happening there. Lomax named on the wing, so he actually played there. I didn't cover this on Sunday, but he did actually play there during that game against the Dragons, and he's been named there as well. We know last year he killed it Supercoach-wise when he was on the wing, so that probably is very good for his Supercoach prospects. Raiders 1-17. Pappy's named for the Storm, otherwise they're 1-17. There's obviously that doubt about Pappy with him going off early last week, but all seems to be good to go, which I'm very thankful for. Warriors, they had Rockerberry come into their team, but otherwise nothing material post the bye. Well, the Knights are concerned, so Thomas Cant has been named on the starting edge. Some rumours were going around that he was potentially going to be named at centre, but he has been named on the starting edge with Kai Pearce-Paul the other edge and Tyson Frizzell at lock. Based on some news and updates we've gotten around Dylan Lucas and Adam Elliott, who's not named, he had a calf issue. It looks like it's a bit more positive for Thomas Cant and his job security for the next few weeks. And for the Tigers, Luai Skelton and Samuel Lafanu back for them as well. So a quick little wrap up of TLT, but I wanted to mention that just because I know there is relevance with Thomas Cant and the people who are missing for the Newcastle Knights and his job security. The GOAT is live, says Travis. Oh, that's very, very kind. Too kind at all, but I ain't no Michael Jordan. It's all down here from here. Yep, that's what SoFile says from earlier. But so where we going? I'm skipping past it. Cheapies. Here we go. Cheapies. So obviously the two players that most people are thinking about Cheapies wise, Dylan Egan and Thomas Cant. 274k for Thomas Cant, negative 66 break even. I think the most appealing thing with him is that he's shown really good work rate. I think he had base of 70 plus, 78 base power in the first game he played. And then last week, I think it was 56. And I was playing at center for a lot of that game because James Schiller missed out most of that game with a head knock early on. So he's shown very good base power. His average is 65 in his two games. Negative 66 break even. So of course, there's a lot of potential cash to be coming in. On him specifically, job security wise. So if you're not in NRL Physio's like broadcast channels on Instagram or Facebook, highly recommend joining them. That's where he posts a lot of very useful updates. Not that long ago, he's posted about Dylan Lucas, and the word is that Dylan Lucas could be back about round 8. So you've got Thomas Cant at least back you've got him for round 6 and round 7. So you've got at least 2 price changes from that front. With Adam Elliott, that calf issue is a reoccurring one, so apparently it doesn't look great. So look, NRL Physio's assessment based on the availability of Dylan Lucas when he comes back, Thomas Cant will get at least 2 to 3 price changes is what he's thinking. So what I wanted to do, shout out again to NRL SuperCoach Stats, just wanted to run some conservative numbers. I gave him this average of 60 in the next 3 weeks, just assuming like he's shown a very good work rate. I think a 60 seems pretty reasonable to give him. If he got 2 or 3 price changes and you gave him scores of 60, he would make in total 194k. So you're looking at about 200k in 2 to 3 weeks. So very, very good cash gen potential there with Thomas Cant, and also happening very quickly as well, which is probably what you want to see, especially where there is a bit of job security risk with him eventually when Dylan Lucas comes back. I would fully suspect that Lucas just takes back his starting edge role and that Kai Pearce-Paul takes the other one. Maybe there's a reshuffle and then Kai Pearce-Paul's named on the bench, but it looks good at least for the next couple of weeks for Thomas Cant, and decent money growth potential even in the next 3 rounds. With Dylan Egan, so he's 198k. Job security, I think, for him is a little bit better. As I mentioned on the Sunday stream, so with Emre Gula being out, Blake Laurie's been named on the bench last week and again this week for the Dragons. But I kind of suspect that when Emre Gula is back, it will be it will be Blake Laurie who drops out for the Dragons. And I think Dylan Egan will stay there. Supposedly Flanagan has good raps on him. He's played 49 and 53 minutes in his first 2 weeks, so pretty solid there, with base of 41 and 48. So his base power average in his 2 games is 50. So with him, just looking again at the next 2 to 3 weeks, just to see what it looks like, gave him scores of 50, and he was projected to make about 168k. So maybe 30k less, but that's also scoring 10 points less on average. So both of them have got very good potential for making good money in the next 2 to 3 weeks. My general thoughts is that I think Thomas Cant has that potential of there's job security, but he could also just retain some spot in that team if he continues to look good. And it could be one of those guys who actually just ends up becoming like a 500k second row that you can play in a pinch, or he loses his position very quickly. Dylan Egan feels much more secure in his job, but upside is probably around 50. So he's probably just going to be a more steady guy, but will probably make you 200k in the next 4 to 5 weeks because he's got decent work rate, and plugging that into NRL SuperCoach Stats, he should make about 200k in about 3 to 4 weeks. So bit of a difficult one to decide between the two of them if you wanted to only get one of them. I'd lean, if the money is no object and you can afford to pay that extra 70k, I would probably take Thomas Cant, just because I do think there is a bit more upside to him. He is a little bit more expensive, but I think Knights have got a good draw as well. So if he just gets some attacking stat of any kind, plus his good work rate, he feels much more likely to kind of hit a 80, 90 plus score, and that would really see his cash gen start spiking a lot. Dylan Egan just feels like he's going to be a solid 50, but nothing really much more than that. And not necessarily a plotter, but his cash gen is just going to be a little bit more stable. Thomas Cant's got that potential to make really quick, good money. So I think Thomas Cant, I do prefer him slightly over Dylan Egan when it comes to that. Just there is a bit more risk, but that ability to get that really big price rise out of him with a big score, I feel is better with him compared to Dylan Egan. Max Wilson saying no mention of Riley Smith in the cheapie slide. I'll be honest, probably just forgot about him, to be honest. He's been named to start again. There could be some of that funky rotation that happened last week as well. Look, he played 66 minutes last week and was very good real life wise, but it didn't quite translate SuperCoach. He only scored 30 points. I'm looking at his PPM over the season: 0.31, 0.64, 0.77, 0.97, and then 0.55. So his PPM over the year is about 0.61. If he just gets 0.61 PPM in plays 65 minutes, he's going to be averaging 40, which is, it's okay, but he's 252k. He's not, I think, going to be someone who, again, famous last words, but I'm actually just going to plug it into the SuperCoach Stats calculator just now. If I give him a score of 40 for the next 3 rounds, he'll make 70k. So he'll make some money, but he feels much more of a slow burn. Thomas Cant, though, Dylan Egan, they feel like they're going to make money quicker and potentially more as well. So obviously they're in different positions, I get it, but Riley Smith doesn't feel like he's going to be as big of a cash generator as those other two guys. Just going to quickly end the poll there. Just let's see if I'll take some questions. Would I play Cant this week? Absolutely. I think if you can afford to play him, people will have Tino missing out this week. He's definitely a play. Like, he's shown good work rate. I'm assuming based on the team list, he'll play 80 minutes. He's probably good for like 60 plus. And it's the West Tigers. He could get an attacking stat as well. I guess the question is probably, look, they're both decent cheapies. I guess, who do you sell for them? I think if you're looking at second rowers in your team that you're looking to cut, I've got Alex Seyfarth in my own squad. He's been fine. Last week, obviously, was a bit of a down week. But apart from that, he's actually been very serviceable. His season average is 55 and his break even is 46. He's not like going to be an urgent sell in terms of losing money this week. It's not like he's got a sky-high break even. But it feels like him and Thomas Cant can probably score about the same. So you may as well just take that massive price saving and make some money along the way as well. So someone like a Seyfarth, not a must sell, but feels okay to expend. I could see a question earlier in the chat, which was about selling. I think it was Nafahu White for one of Dylan Egan or Thomas Cant. That feels much more difficult to me. So one, I like the duel of Nafahu White. His break-in's 38. It's a little bit less than Seyfarth. I just think, though, with this injury to Lindsay Collins now for the next few weeks, Nafahu White, I think, has just continued to put out the scores that he's been putting out so far, which is like around the 55s. Granted, Thomas Cant can probably get you about the same. but he's got that Origin cover as well. We will get to it maybe after this slide, but the Roosters do have a very good schedule in terms of covering all the major bye weeks. He's a Kiwi, not affected by Origin, and so I think he'll be someone actually who'll be quite useful around that period of time. He's kind of just putting out good scores with Lindsay Collins out. Like looking back at his earlier scores when Collins was out, 48, 57, 57, 50, and 49. And in those games, he played over 50 minutes so far, 56, 87, and 77. Like some pretty good scores from him. I don't feel as confident selling a Nafahu White as I do a Seyfarth, even though Seyfarth has also had good games in him. I just feel like with that Collins injury, Nafahu White will step up again. So I'm not sure if I'd endorse selling Nafahu White. Seyfarth I can get on board with. Jermaine Hopgood is another one that I think people are looking to sell as well. I'm just going to quickly jump to the top 10 traded outs. So Hopgood is actually not in the top 10. Alex Seyfarth is number 6. Jack Gazzeski is actually the second most traded out player. He's 307k with a 16 break even. I can kind of even understand that one. You're not freeing up a lot of money making that kind of trade out, but your cash gen is probably going to be a lot better, obviously, going with a Thomas Cant than it is a Gazzeski. So I don't hate that. This is an interesting one as well, which is from Tom Leung, is Dimitri Valmonga to Cant sideways. This is something I'm also considering whether that's a sideways move or not. I don't think it's sideways because Thomas Cant's minutes, probably at least for the next 2-3 weeks, will be better. Valmonga did play good minutes last week. It's probably helped now that Dylan Walker's not in the club anymore, so there's a bit more middle minutes on offer. He went out and scored 41. But like, to be honest, I reckon that's probably going to be the best he'll do. Like, I'm just having a quick look at his minutes. He played 28 minutes. I mean, you take the 80-minute edge back row any day over a 28-minute middle forward. He got the dual status, but still, I think it's still an upgrade. Yes, you have to pay about 50k, but then you're going to make close to another 200k. So net, you're going to make 150k. To me, that still feels worth a trade and also better scoring potential. Boosting is when it gets a bit difficult. So Flarbet is asking, is it good to boost to get 2 guns plus Cant? Look, depends on how many boosts you've also got remaining. I'm generally a fan of when you can boost and to get in like a really good cheapie plus like a gun or 2, which is exactly what you're saying. I think it's worthwhile, a boost to be doing that. But you just need to kind of decide, I guess, on if you're comfortable kind of going through your boosts at this point in the season. So those are a couple of second roles that I think people might be looking to sell, maybe some other cheapies, and if they're good moves. As I said, nothing wrong with Dylan Egan if you can't afford to get up to Thomas Cant. Dylan Egan is completely fine as well. But I think in terms of bigger upside in cash gen, I think Thomas Cant for me is the one. He's probably just going to have a shorter shelf life. You just need to be prepared that maybe in 2 or 3 weeks you might need to just resell him, because when Dylan Lucas is back, if Kai Pearce-Paul stays on the edge, then Thomas Cant might just get a bench roll, and then all of a sudden you probably want to trade him out at that point. A couple of other cheapies I just wanted to mention, not in the second rowers. Well, you do have Katoa from the Eels. Look, he has a negative 22 break even, and his stats are okay. Base power average of 40. I think I'd be taking Dylan Egan or Thomas Cant over him. They're both cheaper. Both have got better underlying base stats as well. So I think their cash gen potential is better. Jalen de Groot from the Titans. If you are looking for a downgrade in center, not many of them floating around this week. He's got a break even of 21, so it's not even that low. And he's got very, very poor base. Only a base power average of 14. Draws okay, but I don't feel confident trading him in as a downgrade unless you've really got him as the only option. On radar probably for future weeks. So Savala from the Roosters, 198k, named to start this week in the halves in replacement of Chad Townsend. Don't really pay too much attention to his averages because he's had a couple of games where he was playing very low minutes. Let's see what he looks like playing the full 80 minutes in the halves. Supposedly good raps on him from New South Wales Cup. But he's also available in second row forward and halfback. So if you miss out on Thomas Cant or Dylan Egan, maybe you might get Savala in a couple of weeks anyway. So that might be potentially your get out of jail free card. If you miss out on those two, you might get another second row forward cheapie in a few weeks. Centers downgrades next week. Billy Smith I'm definitely eyeing off. But named again, had base power 40 or 43 last week. If the rumours are true and Dom Young is the one who gets dropped for Mark Nwangatisawasi and Billy Smith retains a spot, I think he's a perfectly good downgrade next week. Probably not. I'd probably give it one more week though. Gave my thoughts on Riley Smith already. Let me know if there's any other cheapies I'm missing out on. Bo's asking, would I go Hamish Stewart to either one of Dylan Egan or Thomas Cant, or let Stewart keep going? Let's just quickly flick to the break evens. So Hamish Stewart isn't actually in the top in terms of best break even. So I'm just going to have a quick look at what his break even is. So just bear with me for a second. He's 268k with a break even of 22. So he'll make a little bit of money, but just a bit of a slower cash burn. Does look like Dylan Egan's actually usurped him in terms of minutes. So I think Hamish Stewart. So what do we say? Dylan Egan played 53 minutes last week. Hamish Stewart instead. Let me just bring it up. Sorry, 1 second. There's a lot of Stewarts in this list here. He's played 36 and 30 minutes the last 2 weeks. Minutes definitely seem to be in Dylan Egan's favour. It feels a bit sideways, but I can understand it if you're in that mindset of prioritizing cash gen. At this point in time, I think it's fine. I think it's worth the move. Spencer Lenuman, I've got him, but not sure what to do with him. To be honest, I haven't really looked that much into Spencer Lenu as a SuperCoach option this year. He's 397k, break even of 50. Yeah, to be honest, if you've got the duels, him down to Thomas Cant frees up 120k, I'd probably be on board with a move like that. And Spencer Lenu could also miss games during the Origin period because he could easily be picked for New South Wales. Would I downgrade Skelton to Billy Smith or hold Skelton to upgrade later on? So yeah, Skelton's been named this week for the Tigers. I wouldn't do that move this week, Jason. I don't think Skelton's got that high of a break even. And the matchup against the Knights isn't terrible. It's not amazing, but it's not terrible. So Skelton's got a break even of 52. So very unlikely that he really goes down that much in price. So you can afford to wait a week when Billy Smith's not going up in price. So I think I'd hold on to Skelton this 1 week. And if he doesn't look that great this week, Billy Smith looks good again and is named again next week, then I think you can easily make that trade next week. I don't think you need to rush into that one. Other potential money makers. Talta Kola from the Manly Sea Eagles, he's got a negative 37 break even, but 523k and draws not amazing. So I probably wouldn't be encouraging him. Stafford Toll has been really good for anyone who did pick him up. He's made about 130k already and got a negative break even. Thomas Jenkins, obviously, I think most people watching probably already have bought Jenkins last week, but he's still set to make really good money as well. Lockie Hubner, the same, negative 22 break even. Iongi, minus 19 break even. So this probably is maybe one thing I wanted to mention just broadly around these cheapies and bringing them in. I've mentioned it on the Sunday stream as well. No harm in getting these guys who are going to make money. You just need to be wary of that. You are going to use trades to trade them in and then potentially trade them out and cash them in. And you just need to be thinking about that as well, just to make sure that you're okay with the amount of trades that you're using. It's a bit different when you started with guys like maybe a Shibasaki, not Jesse Arthurs, but maybe a Purdue, maybe an Iongi, a Lockie Hubner. You didn't use trades to, get these guys into your team. You probably just stuck with them from the beginning, and then maybe when you sell them, you've only had to use one trade to get rid of them. So it doesn't feel that bad to cash them in. The other point I wanted to make was around the whole balance of, do you still go for cash gen, or do you start prioritizing points? This is a big dilemma that I've got this week. I don't know what the answer is. I think you do just need to look at your squad and think, okay, who are the guys in my team who are making good money? Firstly, do I have targets that I want to maybe trade them to be able to upgrade them and maybe downgrade them? For example, if you're looking at like a Jesse Arthurs and a Shibasaki, I think Arthurs has got a break even in the 56. I think Shibasaki is -2. So both, like Shibasaki's probably got one or maybe two more price rises in him. Jesse Arthurs at any point could be cashed in if he chucks in a low score. So you just need to be thinking about like, okay, if I need to sell these guys in a coming week, do I have someone that I can trade them down to and then therefore free up money to maybe upgrade the other one? You just need to be looking across your squad and seeing that, are you happy with the cash in that you've got so far? So for example, if I look at my own team, I started the season with, I traded in Tom Starling. He's made good money. I started with Lockie Hubner. He's made already good money and continues to do so. I traded in Nicholson, who's making good money, as is Nafahu White. Santa Smith, we all started probably with. He's made good money so far. I've traded guys like Gutherson, Tuipolot, who've also gone up in price. Jenkins is going to make good money. Shibasaki, Purdue, Toya, Iongi, all these guys are making money for me at the moment. So the question I have in my head is, do I need to be going and getting a Dylan Egan or a Thomas Cant this week? Or do I think I want to start prioritizing trades to get in guns, but also to keep those trades reserved to actually cash in on all those cheapies? Because as I said, for every cheapie you bring in is another trade you're going to have to use, most likely, to sell them and make the money back. So just be wary of these kind of things. I know I'm not really making a strong point here. I think it really just comes down to how's the cash gen been in your team. For example, my team value, I think, I'm just going to have a quick look at it here. So my team value coming into this week was 13.8 million. And I feel pretty good about my cash gen so far. I think if you're above 13, if you're around the same amount as me or even pushing above 14, if it feels like you've got pretty good cash gen in your team, and you might not need to actually go and start trading in all these other cheapies. Maybe start prioritizing points just a bit as well. But yeah, so that's kind of some of my thoughts on that. I haven't fully made up my mind for this week. I think at the moment I'm leaning towards maybe not getting either one of Cant or Dylan Egan, and instead maybe just trying to get 2 guns. I've got like 520k in the bank, and I feel like I'm in a good position rank-wise, and it might be good just to bring in a couple of guns just to kind of consolidate the team and keep the points flowing, I guess. Question from Cooper, which is who to trade Humphreys for. So that's a bit of a tough one. So he's about 420k, I want to say. Look, I think the best trade that you can do, hopefully you've got money from last week if you owned Turbo and you sold him and freed up money. For sure, Humphreys to Cleary would be the move I would make. So I'll quickly just go to halves. And sorry, I realized after the fact, I didn't even put Nathan Cleary on this slide. I think it was just because I just figured he was a given as a trade-in. Look, Cleary's got 116 break even, but it is a Dolphins matchup. Look, Penrith have been poor, but Cleary himself looked really good last week. I think Cleary, if you can get that money of maybe 240k, 250k, Humphreys to Cleary for sure would be the move I would make. And Cleary's cheaper than Jerome Hughes and Nico Hines, and I think he's better than both of them. That would for sure be the move I could make. If you've got the duels, maybe via like a Santa Smith and a Connor Watson to get to a second rower, then of course Dylan Egan or Thomas Cant are good options. But yeah, otherwise I think Cleary's probably the one. If you already have Cleary and you have Humphreys, if you can get the money up to maybe a Jerome Hughes, who I really like, then that's an option. If you've got the duels to get a 5'8", you can get Munster or Dylan Brown as well. So there's obviously heaps of options that you can move to. Just depends on what duels and what flexibility you have. Does team value include cash in the bank? That's a good question. That's from the TOKO effect. I actually don't know, mate. Guys, if anyone knows in the chat, let us know, because I'm not actually 100% sure. You might be right. It might include cash. Sorry, it might exclude actually cash in the bank, because if I have 13.8 team value plus 520k, so I've got 14.3 million. Yeah, maybe that's where my team's at. I honestly don't know. But someone smarter than me can let me know. It doesn't, says Robert. So there you go. Hey Mark, what are your thoughts on Ponga? 2 lackluster scores over the last fortnight. Thinking of switching to Iongi. Do I hold on to Ponga as a gun or choose Iongi for cash gen? Alrighty, so we've spoken probably enough about the cheapies. I think the next probably good topic will be fullbacks. So I know I jumped to this half slide, but let's talk a bit about fullbacks here. So got a bunch of different fullbacks on the screen: Ponga, Latrell, Drinkwater, Gutherson, Reece Walsh, Teddy, Pappy, and Iongi as well. I've got their draws until round 11 and on the screen, and I've also got below me a bar chart of their stats summary for the season so far. So look, with Kalen Ponga, I think if you own, I wouldn't be selling. I know he's got a very high break even of 156, but like the last two, look, that game against the Titans before the bye obviously wasn't great, and the Knights didn't look good. And then they just came against the Doggies last week, who have clearly been one of the better defenses, if not the best defense so far this season. Now comes up against 2 home games, West Tigers and Sharks. Then it's the Warriors, Rabbitohs, Titans, and Parramatta. For sure, when it comes to fullbacks, Parramatta is 100% the matchup that you want. Just not even this year, but over previous seasons, they always concede points to opposing fullbacks. I know we're talking round 11, which is a few weeks away, but realistically, I'm looking at the draw. None of these other top tier gun fullbacks play Parramatta except for KP in the next few weeks, because Iongi is versing the Raiders, so he'll be versing KO Weeks. Then he comes up against the Tigers, Jareen Buller. Then it's a bye. Then it's Will Kennedy, and then it's Hamaso. So not until maybe round 10 from a Supercoach point of view do Parramatta come up against a gun fullback. KP is going to be the next one, realistically. But putting that aside, I think overall the draw is good. I know the break-even's high, but look, Ponga can easily put out like a 110, 120, and then all of a sudden that break-even just kind of doesn't become that big of an issue. So for example, if I look at NRL SuperCoach Stats price change calculator, which I'll just link in the chat right now because honestly it's such a useful tool. If I gave Ponga a score of 110 this week against the Tigers, he would lose 37k, and then his next break-even would be 80. And then you're looking at an 80 break-even for Ponga thinking, you know what, that's fine. And then even if he scored 75 against the Sharks, break-even becomes 40. And then all of a sudden, you're not really looking at that much cash loss from KP. So, yeah, look, R2 Rusty's asking, is Ponga to Pappy sideways? Look, I'm only an advocate of that move if freeing up 100k lets you do some other kind of upgrade, and that's literally the only way you can do it. But I'm really not an advocate for selling KP. Like, put it this way, if it wasn't for Iongi going out and smashing 107 points and having now a negative 19 break even, my plan coming into this week was Iongi to KP. That's why I freed up like 520k is to go back to him, because I think the draw is that good. Like, I think KP, if anything, is more of a buy than a sell. I know maybe that sounds crazy given that he's got that high break even and maybe the Knights didn't look that good in attack, but I have that belief in him as a Supercoach option. So yeah, for me, I wouldn't be selling KP. Reece Walsh, I know a lot of people are looking at him, 598k. I think, look, he's still a good option purely just because of his price. He's so cheap. But with Reynolds being named, he's not goal kicking. I think that appeal's probably shone off a little bit. So I think Walsh now, look, he's not in my top 3 fullbacks to be considering. Latrell, I'm still happy to wait on. Named at 5'8". To be honest, I've never actually seen Latrell play at 5'8". So be interesting to see how he goes. They're going all the way to Perth as well, playing against kind of call it a resurgent Cowboys. They've won their last 2 matches. Drinkwater looks very, very good post the bye. So he's got the Rabbitohs this week, then the bye. Then it's Titans, Warriors, Penrith, who obviously aren't. Look, they're shaded dark red on my screen, but that's old color formatting. Realistically, they're not that bad of a defense. They're not that good of a defense at the moment. And then it's Manly. So Drinkwater's draw is actually pretty good as well, and he'll be very good during the Origin period as well. Any fullback questions, chuck them in now. So people are asking about Teddy. So Tool Pro's asking, all attack will revolve around Teddy now, ? I think that was always the case for the Roosters, to be honest. And the thing with Teddy, like if you look at the chart below me, him and Iongi have got the best base stats, 32 average. But when it comes to evasive numbers, only Gutherson rivals Teddy. But the evasive numbers are different for both of them. Like Gutherson's evasive numbers is from line breaks, whereas Teddy's is probably more from tackle busts. So Teddy's like floor is way higher than probably any other fullback. He scored like 60-something plus points in base power just last week as well. With Teddy, look, they've got the bye in round 10, but the next 4 is not bad. Broncos, Penrith, Dragons, and the Dolphins. So I think if you've got the cash, Teddy's a nice little point of difference. You just need to be wary of the round 10 bye. But assuming that Teddy doesn't play Origin, he will be pretty much must-own during the bye schedule because the Roosters play every major bye round this season. Mason Gibson says, thoughts on Gutho? Is he still a buy or is he just an antipod at this point? So yeah, it's a tough one for people who don't own Gutherson. So on the Sunday stream, I probably went into the Dragons' long-term draw in a bit more detail. But long story short, it's very, very good. Mainly the way I'm looking at draw at the moment is so long as an attacking player is not versing Melbourne, the Bulldogs, the Sharks, and ideally still Penrith. If they're not playing any of those 4 for a while, I think their draw is pretty good. If I look at the Dragons' draw, they've got Titans at home this week, Manly away, then it's the Roosters, Tigers, Warriors, Broncos, Knights, Dolphins. They don't play the Sharks until round 15, so there's a very good long-term draw for the Dragon players. They don't play Melbourne again at all this season. They only play Penrith in round 27, which is the final round of the year. And then next play the Sharks in 15 and the Bulldogs in round 20. So they've gotten a lot of their tough matchups out of the way, and Gutherson is still averaging 109. Is he still a buy? Yes, I think so, because I don't know what the captaincy stats currently look like, but I wouldn't be surprised if he is the most highly captained player coming into this week. So having a look at it actually, so if I look at all coaches in the top 10%, the most popular captain is Clint Gutherson. So at the moment, Gutherson's got 32% captaincy this week, and that's in coaches ranked in the top 10%. So you'd think of this as the more serious super coaches. He's number one captaincy choice. Purely a buy, I think, just for that as well. It's a lot of money, of course, 829k, but the long-term draw is good. He's passing the eye test. He's so involved for the Dragons. And I think you can just buy him this week. And look, if he scores over 100 again, he'll go up a bit of money. If he fluffs up against Manly and then he's got a really high break even, you can still just sell him for anyone else. You can just sell him to Teddy if you want. But I think he's just got the hot hand at the moment. Probably, I don't think he'll average 109 for the season. The bubble will burst at some point. But right now, he looks extremely motivated, and it's a good matchup at home this week. So yeah, I think Gutherson still is a buy. If I'm ranking my top three, if the top three fullbacks I would love to have right now would probably be Pappy, Gutherson, and Ponga or Teddy. Probably Ponga. I think KP, Pappy, and Gutherson would be my top three right now. In a couple of weeks, Drinkwater will probably come in there, maybe for a Gutherson. Once Nick Meaney's back, Pappy's probably going to drop out of that top ranking, and then it's probably going to be Teddy. Gutherson's could still be part of that three, but it could be Ponga, Teddy, and Drinkwater at that time. Obviously, we have so many options. Latrell I haven't even mentioned as well. But yeah, look, for me, Gutherson still is a top three fullback to own at the moment. So I think he actually still is a buy. Of course, if you need to rip up your team, you're making massive sacrifices like selling Ponga, then I probably would say, look, you know what, you've probably missed his biggest scores. You've probably, apart from this week, missed the best part of his draw, which was, I think, Parramatta and the Titans. After that, the draw is okay, but it's not as good as the last 2 weeks. So he could still be an antipod, but look, put it this way, I own him and I'm happy to own him at this point. I'll just keep assessing him week by week, and anytime I think he's starting to drop off, I'll probably just sell him at that point. Would I go Ponga to Teddy with the idea to trade Iongi to Ponga in 2 weeks when his price peaks? I don't think so, purely because I think I prefer Ponga's next 2 weeks matchups than Teddy. I know what you're doing here, which is that you're trying to avoid Ponga's price drop. But as I said before, even if he scores 110 this week, his price only goes down like 30k, and then his break-even is going to be 80. You might not actually be saving yourself with that much money, but you'd be burning 2 trades. I wouldn't probably do that move. Like Broncos away in Penrith, it's still tough for Teddy compared to Ponga's 2 matchups at home, with Tigers being one of those matchups. So yeah, for me, Ponga to Teddy, I don't think I'd be doing that move. Jaden is asking Gutho versus Pappy as a buy. Okay, based on that, I'd actually rather pick Pappy. So Pappy's good to go this week. I think the Storm, who I've got a slide specifically on the Melbourne Storm, which we can actually get onto next. But I think the Storm's draw is one of the best going around at the moment. Plus, you also have the confidence that this is a team that you can actually back in to score lots of points, because I think they're averaging 35 points a game so far. We saw last week against Manly away. That's not an easy matchup. They scored 48 points with ease. So Melbourne is definitely a team I'm wanting to invest as much as I can, and I don't feel bad about it because you can trust that team to score plenty of points. Pappy goal kicking, look, he has to do a lot to get his points, but I think for the, what are we talking, almost $200,000 price saving, I would probably take Pappy, just because obviously that's a lot of money that you'd be saving. So yeah, Pappy, Gutho, Ponga would be my 3. Ponga versus Gutho as a captain choice. We'll get on to captaincy a little bit later so far. To be honest, leaning Gutherson, I think, over Ponga. I just think I'm looking at eye test a bit as well. But of course, Ponga on his day can punch out a massive score. Would I buy Teddy or Pappy this week? Again, answering that question, I'd probably say Pappenhausen going into this week. I love the fact that he's goal kicking. And like Melbourne's draw, like Warriors at home, Dolphins is in Suncorp, where Melbourne have got a great record. Rabbitohs, I think, is at home. Raiders is again at Suncorp, I want to say. Then it's the West Tigers at Amy Park again. Then it's the Sharks at Shark Park in round 11. But like the next 5, they're only playing at Amy Park or Suncorp, which are 2 grounds that Melbourne Storm are more than fine to play at. So yeah, I really love the Storm draws next 5. Pappy, is he a good captain choice? Yeah, for sure he's a good captain choice. Probably not my preferred one though, just because while I love the guy and his goal kicking, he does need to do a lot to get his points. That's probably the only thing I'd say. I'll answer this question as well. What price will Iongi max out at? I mean, how long is a piece of string? But let's say Iongi in the next 2 weeks scores 50 and 50 before he hits that bye in round 8. He's projected, as per NRL SuperCoach Stats, to make another 110k if he scores 50 the next 2 weeks. So if you factor that in, he should be around early 500k, which is an awesome price to be at. Look, even after that, he could still be a hold, but I'm also thinking the same, which that I think in round 8 is when I'll probably assess Iongi and whether he's a sell for me at that point. But the fact that round 8 does coincide with Dragons and Dolphins for Teddy, coincides with Ponga playing Warriors and having his good run, I will probably most likely look to move on Iongi in round 8. But yeah, I think he'll probably max out at 500 and around 500k mark. Teddy or Pappy, I think I answered that before. I think I'd probably go Pappy this week. Just price saving, goal kicking, and draw I think is better. Like Pappy doesn't have a bye for until round 12. Teddy does have that bye coming up a little bit later in round 10 as well. Michael Griffith says, is Grant a sell? So I think we're going to use this to pivot onto this slide that I've got here, which is on the Melbourne Storm. Actually, I'll take this final question from Jack, which is, would I sell Iongi to Pappy? No, I think in general with Iongi, the fact that he's got that negative 19 break even, I think you do just take the fact that he's going to make, as I said, just punching in those numbers. If he scores 50 the next 2 weeks, should be making 110k. I think that's money that you can't really ignore. And plus, he's also shown that he can be played and score good points as well. I think the next two matchups, I'll go back to that really. If I just jump to Iongi's draw real quickly, yeah, Canberra at home, the West Tigers, like those two matchups are fine. Like he can actually be making decent points in those two games. So I think, yeah, Iongi, I wouldn't be selling even if it was for a Pappy. But yeah, Melbourne Storm players, so let's talk about that. Obviously, there's a lot of them featuring in the top 10 most traded in. You've got Munster in 4th, Hughes in 5th, Eli Katoa in 6th, and Pappy in 9th. So 4 big guns all featuring in the top 10 traded in players for this week. Harry Grant's not featuring in that though. So obviously we spoke a bit about the draw just then with Pappy. It's an amazing run all the way until round 12. One good thing with the Storm as well, particularly with the Origin players like a Munster and a Harry Grant, is if you look quickly at the Origin bye schedule, so Melbourne actually have their major buys in round 12, 15. Those are the two same weeks as Origin. So what it means for Origin players like Munster and Grant, they were already going to miss that week anyway. So it actually reduces the number of games they could have missed. In the opposite is, say, for like the Roosters. So the Roosters play every major bye week. So they play in round 12, round 15, and round, I think it's 18. So, but what that means though, if someone like an Angus Crichton, if he plays Origin, he will already miss round 12 and 15 and 18 because that's when Origin is. Then the Roosters also miss games in round 14 and also, yeah, they miss round 14. So what you'd be looking at is you'd be looking at a period of time where Gus misses 12, maybe rests or lower minutes than 13, misses 14, misses 15. All of a sudden, you've got a guy who you have to sell. With Grant, Munster, you don't have to sell them during Origin because even though they might get rested, there's less chance of it happening compared to someone, say, like the Roosters, where they've got more games on during those major buy rounds. But Melbourne's draw is very, very good. I'm a big advocate of piling in on teams that you know are scoring good points, and all of these guys are all good options in their own right, apart from Harry Grant at the moment. But Munster's averaging 77, Pappy 82, Hughes 71, Eli Katoa 83.5. Like they're all absolutely killing it. Oh yeah, I missed a donation. Oh yeah, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Callio. $5, very much appreciated. Hopefully this covers your coffee tomorrow. I love the content. Thank you, Mr. Callio. Yes, that will cover my coffee. My average price of coffee in the Sydney city is about $4. There's a good place I go to all the time. $4.80 for a large, good price, good coffee. I've always gone there. So yes, your $5 donation will cover my coffee. So thank you so much, Mr. Callio. And thank you to 1-0 to the Arsenal for pulling me up on that one. Appreciate it. But no, thank you, Mr. Callio. Question here, which is Hughes versus Munster versus Pappy. Who to prioritize? Oh, tough one. who would I prioritize? Of course, team dependent. Where in your team do you need the player? Look, I think despite what I said about Pappy just then, he'd probably be lowest priority just because fullback's stacked. If you don't get Pappy, look, you can get Reece Walsh, who's cheaper. You can get Teddy, you can get Ponga, you can get, what do you say? Latrell. There's all these other good fullbacks that you can move to, and you don't have to have Pappy. 5'8", realistically, you've only got Campbell, Munster, Dillbags, and Galvin. And a halfback, you've got Cleary and Hughes and maybe Nico Hines. So definitely Munster and Hughes is the way I was leaning to that question. Between Munster and Hughes, on the one hand, Munster's much cheaper and is scoring better at the moment. But on the other hand, if you are thinking long-term and you just want to buy this person and lock them in, Hughes won't be affected by Origin. He's a Kiwi. You can literally just partner him with Cleary and your halfback is set. Now, of course, if Hines ever goes on a run, you feel a bit locked in because you can't move on to either one. You probably won't move either one of those guys onto Hines. Purely for points and that long-term potential of like total points scored because they're going to play more games, Jerome Hughes. But if you're bringing value into the question, then I think Munster is better value. He's like 140k cheaper. So that's kind of how I'd be leaning. If you really need that extra money, Munster. But if you're asking straight shootout, I think Hughes. I think you can just lock in him and Cleary at halfback. Look, even if you don't go Munster at 5'8", you have got Jaden Campbell. You've got Metcalf, who might be okay. You've got Dewey. You've got Dillbags. You've got Galvin. You probably still do have other options. Halfback probably is even less than 5'8". So Jerome Hughes probably would be the one. I think I'd be leaning there. R2 Rusty. Wakabu says add Eli Katoa into that question. Oh God, you guys aren't making my life easy. You're asking the big questions. Where would I rank Eli Katoa out of all of these guys? Yeah, probably Hughes would be number one. Bloody hell. Would I put Munster or Eli Katoa? I think I'd say Eli Katoa for the same reason I said about Hughes. He's Kiwi and he won't miss any games during Origin. So Eli Katoa, number two, just. Then Munster, then Pappy, then Grant, which sounds weird to say. Look, on Grant, someone asked earlier in the chat, is Grant a sell? Honestly, I wouldn't be selling Harry Grant. You've missed some of his, not missed anything, sorry. Let me rephrase. You've already lost money on him by holding him. I think if you've got him to this point, and he's got this draw coming up, if I were you, I would just be holding and just praying that he turns things around. Like Harry Grant's not going to end the season averaging 52. It's more likely that Harry Grant finishes the season with a 67, 68 to 70 average than he does 52. He's just gone through a bit of a slump. Like, he's not been bad NRL-wise. I think he's just not been needed to put on the big attacking stats. It's kind of been going to Hughes and Munster and Pappy. But in any given game, Grant just can make 35 tackles, set someone up for a line break assist, try assist, punch out a 70 to 75, and no one else at hooker apart from maybe like Wade Egan is really killing it. I think I'd be keeping Grant. If anything, Grant with a break even of 63, he's pretty much bottomed out in price. People may be looking at moving on to Tom Starling this week. If you feel like you just want to take the chance that he turns things around, I don't even mind him as a buy, to be honest. So no, I definitely wouldn't be selling Harry Grant. Who do we sell to get them to? I'm not sure exactly, Adam, who you're referring to, if you're referring to these Storm players, but we can talk about some maybe sell options. But yeah, so I just wanted to put some thoughts in there for the Melbourne Storm, given that they're obviously such a highly bought team coming into this week. So just having a look at other top 10 trade-ins, probably the couple we haven't looked at is second rowers like Sua Wong. So let's get on to back rowers. Actually, there's a quick question on Jaden Campbell as well. I'll quickly mention that. Thoughts on Jaden Campbell? I think Jaden Campbell is still completely fine as a trade-in. Titans run, just let me quickly remind myself of it. Dragons, Raiders, Cowboys, Bulldogs, Knights, Canberra again. Look, apart from that Bulldogs matchup, I don't really hate any of those games. He showed his floor last week with 52. You could maybe wait this week. He's got a break even of 107. But I still think he's a very, very good option in 5'8". I traded for him last week. Obviously not amazing, but I'll take it. I'll take the score of 52 if that's going to be his poorest. Hey man, keen to know your thoughts on JC, especially in comparison to Hughes. Both missed round 12, pretty sideways, but Campbell is tough watch in comparison. I mean, the way that you've said that question, Tedson, makes it sound like you'd want to sell Campbell to Hughes. I definitely wouldn't be doing that. He's goal kicking for a Titans team that, look, they can on their day score points. Obviously didn't happen last week, but again, 52 points is what he delivered in such a poor Titans game. I'm more than happy to keep Campbell. I think you've got probably bigger problems, and if you want to get to Hughes, Campbell I don't think is a sacrifice. I think your mid-ranges like your Starlings, your Peter Mamazelises, if you can go downgrade, like if you can sell Seyfarth and Starling to like Thomas Cant and Jerome Hughes, to me that's the ideal way of getting to these guns, is to get a downgrade who's going to make you money, and then you can upgrade one of your other middling players. If you can make that combo work, then obviously that's the way I'd be trying to do it. I thought Hudson Young has good draw, could roll the dice with him instead of Eli Katoa. So yeah, on the second rollers, so I've just got them on the screen here. So I think I mentioned it last week, but yeah, Eli Katoa will still be my preference for number one, second row forward. We've spoken about that Melbourne draw. Look, his work rate is not as good as the likes of an Angus or a Tino, but what he lacks in the work rate, he makes up for in attacking stats. So he's similar to like a Olukwatu. So Olukwatu averages 54 base power. Eli Katoa is 58. You compare that to Tino, he's 69. Like even a Sua Wong is averaging base power of 62 this season. Angus Crichton 63. But he just makes it up in attacking stats. With Hudson Young, I mentioned it on the Sunday stream. He is attacking stat reliant. He's a bit of a roller coaster. He scored like 2 scores in the 40s. And then aside from that, there's like a 70, a 90, and 110. I don't have the ownerships in front of me. I would obviously guess that Hudson Young is definitely a point of difference. So if I look at second row forwards, apologies, just give me a second. Actually, what I wanted to do, so 1 second here. So yeah, so Eli Katoa currently is 15% owned. Hudson Young is 3.7% owned. So he's massively probably under-owned for what he can deliver. He's cheaper. Next 3 games are really good for the Raiders. We're looking at Parramatta, Titans, and then the Dolphins. Like that's a really, really nice run coming up next 3 for the Raiders. So look, Hudson Young can definitely be a bit of a pod. For me personally, I just don't like his inconsistency at times. And I should mention that 110 last week did come with a sin bin. But yeah, I just think Eli Katoa and that gun Melbourne team, I just want to stack up on them as much as I can, because Hudson Young can have games where he goes 40, but then on the flip side, he probably has got one of the biggest ceilings in the game. He's one of those back rowers who often can score, doubles. Where's the Galvanator? Yeah, apologies, I didn't look at the Galvanator in the 5-8 slide. Sorry, Tigers fans are going to be having my head for that. Look, Galvin's been solid, but just 50s mainly. 51. He had that big 101 against Parramatta. Otherwise, 50, 57, 59. I just feel like Munster, Dillbags, Campbell, I would all rate them above Galvin. I think they're showing bigger upside than Galvin. Where's Kolomatangi, man? Oh man, I can't fit everyone into these slides, guys. No. It's obviously very hard to wrap in everyone. Look, Kolomatangi's been okay, but 54 last week and 85, but 49, 33, 65. Not that keen. I think there's plenty of other better options for me personally in second row. So yeah, look, I still rank Eli Katoa number 1. Angus, I think, is still completely fine, but it does have that bike coming up in round 10. And just for me, because I'm now in that state of mind where I'm like 50-50 on players and I start weighing Origin into it just a tad, Gus will miss a lot of games during Origin. If I assume he plays for New South Wales. So he feels like one of those players that you trade in and he's going to automatically have to be a trade out at that time. Eli Katoa doesn't give you that risk. Olukwatu probably doesn't give you that risk, but Olukwatu does have a bye coming up in round 9. Fafita back to the bench. I think the minutes will be back to that 55, and I just still not seeing quite enough yet to warrant trading him in. This is where you could go for a front row like a Fanul Blake or Tarpany. Normally these back rows will probably have a bit more upside than the front rowers, but Sua Wong probably should chat quickly about him. It's been 56 minutes. Look, I think Sua Wong is completely fine as a trade-in. There's nothing really about anything he's doing that I can say is a issue. Like, his minutes are good. He's averaged, what have we got here? He's averaged 75 minutes for the season. So we're looking at 68, 80, 80, 67 and 80 minutes for 32, 70, 54, 62. And then obviously last week's big 119. In the last 4 weeks, his base, 56, 56, 54, 59. Like, that's exactly what I like to be seeing from a kind of mid-range back rower. I guess the question is, who do you sell for Sua Wong? I mean, again, safe after him could be an option. Maybe it's a little bit sideways. If you've got like an underperforming mid-ranger, like maybe a Gilbert, I can see a couple of people in the chat are asking about a Tom Gilbert. Is he a sell? Look, at 474k, it's only about 50k more to get to Sua Wong. You're going to make much more money out of Wong, and the way that he's going, I think his base work rate is better than a Gilbert as it stands. So yeah, I think Sua Wong is a very good trade in. He does feel a bit difficult to get in though. I don't know how many people, I don't know how many sells in their second row people have at the moment. Like for me, I'm looking at my own team. I don't think I have that many players I can actually move on for someone like a Wong. Max Plath. Look, Plath is always solid. Scored a try last week that did bump up his score, 71 and 76, but he did score tries in both of the last 2 weeks to probably bump up his score just a tad. He covers a major bye week, but again, if you're paying north of 600k for a second rower, I'd prefer like Hudson Young. At least has got a bigger ceiling on him, scoring 100 plus. Fanul Blake and Tarpany feel much more safe, consistent options for me. Olukwatu is great. Angus is great. Eli Katoa is probably my number one choice though. Lomax or Katoa? So this is a question coming from Corey. Probably Katoa, just purely because Lomax will have a bye in a couple of weeks, and also Lomax will probably miss games during Origin. Eli Katoa won't. So that's my tiebreaker for those two. I'm not sure if there's much more to chat about on the second rowers and front rowers. Apologies, I'm kind of rushing through these last few bits, but I probably do have to wrap up the stream a little bit earlier than usual. We'll still get through everything, of course, as well, but obviously I'll address questions throughout the week as well. Is Nicholson a sell with Hosking coming now? Nicholson is fine. Like, Hosking should be back potentially next week, but I think Nicholson's playing so good that I think he'll retain his 80-minute role. Look, at any case, this week he's got a break even of 5. He'll make a little bit more money. We can reassess next week based on whatever TLT throws up. But for me, not an option at this point. Not someone I'm thinking of selling at this point in time. On this premium centers, now that you've mentioned Lomax, I will quickly just mention Garrick, because I know some people are thinking about selling Garrick. I understand it because he's 806k and he's got a very high break even of 134. And the draw's tough. He's got Sharks, Dragons, Penrith, and then the bye. Whisper made a good point as well that his individual matchups in those games probably aren't that bad. He'll be coming up against Hiroti, Val Holmes, who's not the best defensively, probably Thomas Jenkins in round 8, then the bye. So individual matchups for Garrick aren't too bad. The thing with Garrick as well is that he scored 46 last week. He missed a couple of goals, and I think he was like, it was borderline, that try that he was disallowed. If he scores that try, that's an extra 17 points. If he kicks maybe one of those other goals, like we're looking at someone who scores 67 against Melbourne in a drubbing, just ask yourself, would you be selling him if he scored 67 versus the 46? Because these are the very fine margins that sometimes happens in Supercoach, where just because he scored 46 doesn't really translate to what it could have been very close to scoring. And if he scored 67, even 70, I think the number of people probably wanting to sell him would be much less. The other thing with Manly is that they cover every major bye round. So they will cover round 12, round 15, and round 18. They do miss 16 and 19, which are the 2 mini bye weeks. So that is something you just need to be careful of. But for me, Garrick won't be affected by Origin. He's available in all of those 3 major bye weeks. And in those weeks, he plays Parramatta, Titans, and Rabbitohs. Like, barring any injury, you will definitely want to have Ruben Garrick, I think, for those 3 weeks. I'm just looking at it as, I think I've got other trades that I need to prioritize. Garrick isn't my biggest concern. Sure, if you can make that money get spread around your team and really facilitates guns, and you've got the plan to buy back Garrick, then by all means, and if you've got the conviction to do that, then go for it, because I can understand that you're going to save yourself losing some money on him. But just be wary that you've got to be careful with these things where selling a player to buy them back, that's 2 trades you've got to use. Injuries and other things crop up, and then you might just find you're really struggling to get him back in. And just looking at those big individual major bye weeks, I think I want to be holding him for those weeks. So I'll probably just cop the price drop, but he's still, he's a top 5 center wing in my opinion. So I don't think I'll be selling Garrick, just for anyone who was maybe thinking about selling Garrick. Other premium centers, Lomax, Val Holmes, Farnworth, and Karaz. I spoke a bit about Val Holmes on the Sunday stream just because of that good long-term draw for the Dragons. Lomax back on the wing though is very tempting. Unfortunately, he's just got that bye coming up in round 8. If I had to rank these guys, I think outside of Garrick, assuming a lot of people own him, look, Karaz is very tempting. He scored 61 points in base power on the weekend. I'd probably put Val and Lomax above him though, just purely for the goal kicking. It's surprising. I think I'd actually put Val number 1. Like, he's averaged 65 for the year, but I think he's got more to give in terms of good draw coming up, no buys up until Origin. Lomax maybe just behind him because he's got that buy thrown in there in round 8. Karaz 3rd, and then Farnworth 4th. I think Karaz just looked very, very tempting, and the run after the buy is very good. Rabbitohs, Broncos, Titans, Canberra, and the Roosters. And I think the Bulldogs also play. I'm pretty sure the Bulldogs also play every major bye week. Yes, so the Bulldogs will play round 12, round 15, and round 18. So Karaz, again, similar to Garrick, is probably going to be a gun center that you want to have in your team at that point in time. So thinking a bit longer term to the Origin schedule, especially when you're paying big money for these guys, you kind of want to be buying these guys and sticking with them. That's my mentality anyway. So I think, yeah, Karaz could feature very highly in that ranking of center wings. Obviously not buying him this week, he's on the buy. But yeah, that was just some thoughts I had on Garrick and Lomax and Karaz. Alrighty, let's get into captaincy because we're already going for an hour. Just give me a sec, I need some water. Yeah, keep your questions coming in, guys, as well. So, is Garrick's work rate this year a concern? Only averaging around 9 runs per game. So yeah, Garrick's base for the season is 30. I want to say in previous years, when like last year at centre, his base average was 32. So obviously a little bit better. 2023, I think he was playing more on the wings, so maybe not as good of a sample. His base average is 27. So look, his base is down 2 points per game. It's not a huge number, so I'm not overly concerned. If it was like 32 down to 25, I'd probably say, yeah, okay, it's a bit of a big dip. Only down 2 points a game, I'm not as concerned about. All right, looking at captaincy for this week, people are thinking about Pappy as a captain option. Look, for me, the standouts is Cleary VC, plays the first game of the week, I believe, on the Thursday, I want to say. Yeah, Thursday at Suncorp. It's a good track for points. I think Cleary for me will be the safe VC coming into this week. And then the question I just had was, the other question I had was, do I VC Cleary or do I VC Gutherson? And then maybe put a captaincy on like a Melbourne player in that game at home against the Warriors. The only concern I have captaining players from Melbourne is just that because there's so many players who can do well, sometimes the points can just get shared, and it just might be a game where, you know what, Jerome Hughes didn't need to do well. It could have been a Munster and a Pappy and a Grant show, or Eli Katoa might not be needed that game. Whereas at least with guys like Cleary, Gutherson, like they are the focal point of their team. Ponga is the same. I just feel a bit more confident captaining players like that than I do Melbourne players. So even though I've got Pappy on the list here, I would probably avoid captaining Melbourne players. Mr. Callio makes a good point here as well, that it's the Warriors off a bye. The Warriors had won 3 games coming into their bye as well. So, you know, they're not necessarily a easy bunny team, but Storm at home, you'd always back them in. For me personally, like the way that my team is constructed, I'm going to be going VC Cleary, Captain Gutherson. I just feel like Titans at home, Gutherson in his form, I feel comfortable taking that bet. And if Cleary goes like 110 plus, I'll probably just take the loop and take the safe points. But I do like Gutherson as a captain shout again this week. I did have Reece Walsh here against the Roosters, but I wouldn't now, given that Reynolds has been named and he's probably not goal kicking. Teddy is very safe as well. If you own Teddy, because of his good work rate, you can probably lock in kind of 70 to 80 points from him any given week. If anyone owned Latrell, look, I don't know how he's going to go at 5'8", but his goal kicking against the Cowboys. Drinkwater, for anyone who does own Drinkwater, actually could be a good captaincy shout too. Ponga, of course, West Tigers at home is obviously a really good shout. I'm going to assume that I'm going to assume most people don't have both of Gutho and Ponga. So I think if I was in that position, if I had Gutherson, I'd captain him. And if I had Ponga, I'd captain him and probably stick the VC on Cleary. If you have both of them, I'd probably lean towards Gutherson captain. I think eye test wise, he's probably just passing it for me a little bit more. If you want a safe captain though, you've got your Payne Haas's and you also have your Terrell Mays as well. But yeah, let me know in the chat what you guys are thinking for captaincy. Mr. Callio Tour Pro is giving us the weather forecast. So let's see, what is the Brisbane weather looking like for Thursday for Cleary. Thursday looks pretty good. Looks like it's 26 and partly cloudy. Oh, actually, there's a bit of precipitation. It says Thursday, 6 p.m, partly cloudy. I think it'll be fine for Thursday. What's the weather like where's WIN Stadium? Cogra. Oh, Wollongong, sorry. Wollongong weather. I'm sure this is the content you guys all wanted to see. Friday in Wollongong at 6 p.m, clear. Love to see that. Yeah, look, I don't think the weather's going to be as good in Sydney as it was last week, where it was bright sunshine in Sydney and Brisbane. But look, I think the weather doesn't seem like it's going to be that bad. So, VC Cleary, Captain Gutherson is the way I'll be going. A little bit dewy, says Friday, Pytech. That just means that Gutherson's just going to break a few more tackles because he's going to be all slippery and no one's going to be able to lay a finger on him. That's how I'm thinking about it anyway. But yeah, no, look, Terrell May, as Hugh says here, is a good captain option against a somewhat depleted Knights as well. Yeah, you can always safely bet on Terrell May. 30 degrees on Sunday in Melbourne. Oh yeah, let's check the Melbourne weather for Sunday. That's bloody warm for Melbourne. Oh, Sunday looks a cracker for Melbourne. Yeah, 29 degrees and sunny. Let's lead in with that as we talk about my team, because I think that might be a section you guys might be interested in as well. But yeah, let's get onto my team, and because Melbourne Storm do feature heavily in my thoughts for this week. Guys, if you're just tuning in for the first time as well, if you just wanted to see my team, please do give the stream a like as well. Going on for an hour 10, we'll go for another 10 or so minutes, and then we'll probably wrap it up. So for my team this week, so obviously Tino suspended, so he's currently sitting out at the moment. I've used 3 boosts already, and I've got 521k in the bank. And obviously I had a cracking round last week. So I think because I had such a good week last week and I'm in a good rank spot, I want to kind of just, again, of course, I want to keep making good decisions, but I'm just thinking, I'm like, similar to last week, I had a really good feeling about Gutherson captain. I just want to, as much as I can, just keep going with my gut. I feel like that's always the best way to play SuperCoach. Obviously, I look at a lot of stats and stuff, but in the end, just go with your gut, because that's when you get the least regret about your decisions. Thomas Cant, Dylan Egan, both available in second row. Realistically, the only guys in my second row I think I can sell for them is Seyfarth, who's not even a must sell, and Dimitri Varmoga, who's okay. So what I could do is, and look, I really like Hughes, I really like Eli Katoa. I'm not going to shy away from that. Those are 2 guys I'm looking very, very heavily at as well. So I can get both Hughes and Katoa in this week without a boost. We haven't spoken about Starling yet this stream, but I know a few people may have been asking about that. Starling, again, also not an urgent sell. His break-even's 55. Next 3 weeks are really good matchups. He could actually get some attacking stats and, actually kickstart some cash gen. The concern is, I guess, just the minutes. He is now realistically in that low 50 minutes role. While the matchups are good, last week he scored, 51. That did include a try assist, so his work rate was a little bit down last week. Look, Eels is good, but it's in Darwin. It's not even like it's Eels in... If it was Eels at home, or even Eels at Combank, I'd be a bit more comfortable. I think Tour Pro says the same thing I'm thinking. Raiders in Darwin could struggle. They struggled when they went up to play the Cowboys in Townsville as well. So I don't know. I feel like the Raiders, I'm not that sold on this week. I'll play Nicholson for sure. But my first trade thoughts coming into this week was Starling out. I swap Sandon Smith up to hooker. And then I get in Jerome Hughes. And then I can upgrade Seyfarth, who's been fine. But I can upgrade Seyfarth to Eli Katoa. And that leaves me with 11k in the bank. Like, I look at that and I just think that's two mid-ranger guys who've been good for me, have made a little bit of money, and then I convert them to two absolute guns. And then, like, my halves are Cleary, Hughes, Campbell, Munster. Like, I think I can just set and forget that. I'll have 4 Melbourne Storm players. I'll have Gutherson. I'll have Pappy, Munster, Hughes, and Eli Katoa, which maybe is overkill, but I love it. What else is there? Payne Haas, Terrell May. Like, I think the team looks really good having those 2 gun players in there. I guess the consideration is obviously that I'm not getting either one of Dylan Egan or Thomas Cant, and potentially missing out on some more cash gen. And I have thought about this as well, is that I will want in the few weeks coming up to get another gun fullback. I spoke about Iongi in round 8. He might need to get upgraded to a gun fullback, and I might need maybe 150k to do that. Got Jesse Arthurs and Shibasaki on the bubble. They could be sells very soon. With them, I'm thinking if I did someone like, say, if Jesse Arthurs went down, say, 10k next week, if he's 490k and I sell to Billy Smith, who's 317k next week, that frees up maybe 180k. I'd have 190k in the bank. That might be enough to go Shibasaki to maybe someone like a Val Holmes if he drops again in price next week. But there's no guarantee of that, of course. So those are 2 guys who I think I might be able to sell and convert into another gun center wing, but then that uses all my money. So I still think while it is nice getting these 2 guns in, I do still need to, I think, keep making some cash if I can. So it seems sideways. I'm not totally sold on this, and I may not do it, but I could just boost Varmoga to Dylan Egan. Frees up a few extra dollars. I might make another 200k off Dylan Egan. As I said, look, that would be my 4th boost in a row. I'm not sure if I love that. I'm also thinking, do I need to force in Eli Katoa this week? I think Hughes I feel much more confident in, because I feel less confident in Starling than I do Seyfarth. So, like, for example, if I didn't do Eli Katoa for Seyfarth, I could just get in Thomas Cant this week and just say, sweet, I've got 488k in the bank. It was a nice feeling having this much money in the bank, because it just feels like you can always make big moves in the weeks ahead. Like, Eli Katoa is great. I can skip him this week, and I can also get him next week. So at the moment, I'm leaning towards not doing the boost. It's just making that decision of Eli Katoa and having not much money in the bank, or getting Thomas Cant and having heaps of money in the bank. Maybe that keeps me flexible for selling Jesse Arthurs, selling Shibasaki, selling Atoya, selling Iongi, selling a Hubner, because he's going to eventually be traded to make money, maybe selling a Nicholson. So yeah, I'm a little bit all over the shop in terms of, do I go 1 gun, 1 cheapie, or do I get 2 big guns and then just figure out the cash gen later? Honestly speaking, my gut is saying get in the big guns, get in both Eli Katoa and Jerome Hughes. But let me know what you guys think. That's some of my thoughts for this week. But I don't know. It just feels really nice having Eli Katoa, Munster, Jerome Hughes, and Pappy, and their next 5 games are so good. Like, as I said in the stream, I don't mind stacking up on a gun team who's scoring lots and lots of points. I just love that my halves are pretty much set. It just means that realistically, I'm just focusing my trades on Iongi, centers, and then maybe second row probably doesn't need touching for a while. Front row is fine. Round 10, I will have an issue because Connor Watson and Sandon Smith will both be on the bye. But we can figure out, like, I could just cop 1 week without a hooker as well. So that's round 10. That's still 4 weeks away. So yeah, anyway, that's currently where my head is leaning, getting the 2 guns in. But let me know what you guys think in the chat. And let's do 5 more minutes of questions and then we'll wrap up everything. But no, 316 viewers, which is awesome. But yeah, please do give the stream a like, guys, if you are enjoying it out there. Peanut Gallery says, I only tune in for the weather forecast. Iongi to Teddy plays all 3 major buys during Origin. Yes, again, Iongi to Teddy could be the move that I do make in, say, round 8, but we discussed it earlier. Iongi might be 500k. I'll still need like $300,000 to go from Iongi to Teddy. So this is why I was thinking, do I want to spend all that money to go stay fast to Eli Katoa? That money could be reserved for a gun center like a Karaz or a Val Holmes. But look, I guess Jenkins is going to make good money. Purdue's making really good money as well. So I might be okay from a cash gen point of view. How many trades do I have left? So after these 2 trades, I would have 35 trades left. Let me quickly show you guys as well. If I do make those 2 trades, how would I set up my team? Obviously, I'd definitely be reserving Jerome Hughes, that's for sure. I'm reserving Munster. I would only play one of Jesse Arthurs or Shibasaki this week. I think I'd probably lean Arthurs. Just feels like he's more likely to get the tries than Shibasaki is. Purdue is a very good play this week against the Rabbitohs, but I think Jenkins has to be played. Tuipulotu has to be played. Garrick still has to be played. And then Iongi up in Darwin. I think Iongi could do well this week. So my final reserve is either going to be Purdue or Iongi, because Terrell May is going to definitely get played, and Hughes and Munster will as well. But this will be what my team looks like. Again, looks pretty strong coming into this week. I can easily afford to have Tino on the bench as well with the way the team's set up, which is good. So squad depth is looking pretty good. All right, let's take your questions for the few minutes, guys, before we wrap up. Is Hines to Hughes worth a trade or too luxury? I think that's too luxury. I think if you own Nico Hines, I just be keeping. Look, with the Sharks, they've got decent... It's an okay draw. They've got a lot of travel coming up, so they don't play at home again until round 11. They're going to Perth this week. I think... What do they do? Let me just bring this up real quick. Yeah, so they're going to Perth this week, then they go to the Newcastle Knights, then they go to Leichhardt, then they go to Suncorp, then they go to Manly. Only in round 11 do they play at Shark Park, but then that's Manly. That's the Storm. So, yeah, good matchups, but a lot of travel. But look, with Hines, I think if you've got him in, I think you just stick with him. I think you just keep him. Can buy one of Pappy or Katoa. Which should I pick? Look, we spoke about ranking the Storm guns earlier. In that time, I said Katoa because he plays all the... Look, Ellie, you know what? I might change my stance slightly on that. Actually, no, I'll keep it at Ellie Katoa. I like Ellie Katoa over Pappy just because fullback stacked. Second row, there's not as many good options, and I feel like he's just a safe bet that you can rely on. There's still a lot of other good fullbacks you can get to apart from Pappy. Thoughts on Mamazelis to Hughes, Seyfarth to Cant, Dewey to Munster. Jack, that looks like a great boost to me. I'd be... Look, Mamazelis is similar to Starling, not an urgent sell. I think his break-even was 39. But if you've got... And look, with Jerome Hughes as well, we didn't really speak about his break-even that much. His break-even is 96. It's not like he's got a break-even in the 60s. He probably most likely won't get 96 and will go down a little bit in price. But for me, even if he scores 70 points, he'll only go down about 20k. And with these big gun players, I think break-evens become less relevant. If you're buying them to stick them in for the long term, you almost have to ignore break-even. And look, he can easily score 96 as well. The thing with Jerome Hughes is that appeals to me. Obviously, last week he looked fantastic, but he looks so good. I thought Hughes this year might regress a little bit, but I'm not really seeing any signs of that. He could just kick on and do what he did last year. So for me, I'm just like, look, Melbourne have got a good run. Let's just lock him in. But Jack, that's a great boost. Humphreys, Gazeski, and Nafahu White for Cant, Egan, and Hughes. As I said before, I don't know if I love the Nafahu White trade out, just with Lindsay Collins being out for the next few weeks. I think Nafahu White will continue to actually just be a very, very solid hold. I don't know what you could do alternatively. I assume you're doing Humphreys to Hughes and you're funding it with White to Cant. This is a cop-out answer. If you can find another way, I'd be trying to do it. But no, I don't love selling Nafahu White. Are you 100% on Ponga? His last 2 games have been absolutely awful. He doesn't look confident at all. Look, as I said, go with your gut. If you think that Pong has not been good and you want to cash in before he loses a bit of money against the Tigers, you can absolutely sell to someone like a Pappy or a Gutherson and just go from there and reassess. As I said, if your eye test isn't saying you don't love what Pong is doing, then I think there's no harm selling, but the draw is good and I've got more faith in the player, I guess, to turn it around. Need to trade out 2 of Seyfarth, Fermor or Metcalf. Probably of those 3, I'd say Metcalf and Seyfarth. So Fermor, look, a bit of a down game last week, but what I really like with both Fermor, second row forward, centre wing, very, very handy dual to have. I wish I had a second row forward, centre wing, because honestly, I'd probably almost be doing Arthurs to Thomas Cant this week if I had the duals, but I don't. So I have to look at my second row. Hines to Cleary. Oh, God, Hines to Cleary. No, I don't think so. I mean, Cleary is definitely the best one, but I don't think I'd be selling Hines. Is there no other way Artur Rusty you can get to Cleary? Sell Gilbert or Hamish Stewart for Thomas Cant. Probably Gilbert, to be honest. You free up more money, I guess, doing that downgrade. Dewey to Sam Riney. Need to free up as much cash as possible to get Hamoli next week. I don't even think Sam Riney was named for the Eels, and he's not been named for a few weeks. I don't think I'd be going him. There's no good downgrades in centre wing currently. Look, if you need a downgrade in centre wing, I'd either just go Jalen de Groot, but he's not amazing. Otherwise, I would just get Billy Smith a week early. But no, I don't think I'd be going Sam Riney. Alright guys, I think I'm going to wrap up the stream there. It's starting to lag just a bit. I think my computer's overheating. But thank you all for tuning in. Really, really appreciate your support during this one. Look, I'll address more questions during the week as well. So keep hitting me up on socials. Go follow me on Patreon as well. That's probably the best place for me to answer direct questions. That's where I'll probably post my final team and trade thoughts as well. So if you want to see what those look like, head over there. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter as well. Alright guys, we're going to wrap up the stream there. Thanks everyone for tuning in and catch you all in the next one. Cheers.